Hello, welcome to Chess Book Reviews 107. I've got 4 books for you today, this evening, chosen at random, but the only thing which links them is that, apart from the fact they're from my library, is that I like them. So, yeah, good reason. The first of these is by the late Colin Crouch. Colin had rather a sad end to his life because he lost his sight, and then we lost him. This is a very little known book, really. It's called How to Defend in Chess. Learn from the world champions. It's quite advanced. Begins with a chapter on principles of defense, the Steinitz legacy, prophylaxis, and geography of the chessboard. Then there's an enormous section on Lange, several games he played, right round to 1935 when he was a very old man, of course. He kept going. Petrosian, games from the 1950s, and one against, well, it also shows other games by his contemporaries like Geller. And some Spassky games, and 2 games from the Fischer-Petrosian match, and then Tal's Petrosian, and then Kasparov Petrosian from Tilburg, 1981. So it's quality, not quantity, but I can assure you probably get both here. These are really, this is one of the best books perhaps for the more advanced player that I've got. The very fact it came out some years ago, let's get this accurate, 2000, so it's been out for nearly 25 years. Have you seen this around on bookstores? Have you seen people carrying this around? Have you seen people such as myself reviewing it? I bet you haven't. Anyway, I don't claim any credit for that, but nevertheless, here's the section on Lange. You'll see the depth of Colin's explanations. I've also got a book by Colin on Hastings 1895, and it might have been the writing of that which gave him the idea to look back at some of the older games. I don't know. Chapter on Petrosian. I was wondering long and hard whether to include this game. It's against Smyslov from 1951. I just have a little sip of coffee before this gets cold. As you can see, I've got a Thelwell mug. Got that today. This is called Petrosian as Defender. It came against Duckstein, the Austrian. It came very late to the Grandmaster title, but he did become a GM. Game against Botvinnik from the 1963 World Championships. I don't think there's any love lost there between those two. One against Boris himself, Boris Spassky, of course. And some supplemental games which aren't Petrosian. And then Spassky Petrosian from 1966. Yeah, they said Spassky plays in Petrosian's own backyard. Yeah, so d4, knight f6, knight f3, possibly g6, no, e6, and then bishop g5. Torre attack. I wouldn't have thought that was particularly exciting, but what do I know? As time goes by, Fischer's match against Petrosian is almost is greatly examined as much as Fischer's match against Spassky. It was Petrosian's instructions in that match to do very little, just to sit there and see if Bobby could beat himself. He didn't, but you would take that point, wouldn't you? Index of openings at the end, and the games listed. Index of players. And there's Steinitz, Spielmann, Schlechter, Pillsbury, Nimzovich, Napier, Khan, Erver, Chigorin, Capablanca, and to top it all, Alakan. Here's Alaska's opponents. That will show you the quality you're getting. Dr. Colin Crouch is an international master and experienced and erudite writer on chess. Yeah, I had. It's a pity he didn't write more in his lifetime. Colin, this is one hell of a good book. The next book is by a friend of mine. It's called Developments in the Orthodox Queen's Gambit, 1984 to 87. When this came out, these were recent games. And you must remember, in that distant and antediluvian era, there weren't the databases. If there were, I didn't know about them. This is a signed edition. Julian signed it for me. There we are. Julian Way's the author. And Peacock is the publisher. What he's done is he's taken some games which Wade no doubt helped him sort out. I'm not saying they're notes by Wade. They aren't. They're notes by Julian. But nevertheless, Wade would have been editor. There's 100 games here. All of them beginning D4, D5, C4, E6, and then knights and bishops out. So it's the Queen's Gambit declined. A good place to start if you want to go over to Queen Pawn openings, perhaps if you started with 1E4, as so many of us did, either at school or when you're playing your first games. And then you certainly switch across. And yeah, it comes as a little bit of as much a shock to you as it does to your opponents. But nevertheless, if you've just played chess in the local club, it's always nice to play the same people, but play against them with different weapons, so that's an example. And Julian's book might help you. It's probably pretty difficult, though not impossible, to get hold of it now. Eric Münster Verlag, and that's a German connection, and Chess Digest in Judd Court, Texas. So they always had fingers in other international pies. And there's a little write-up about the opening and about Julian, who's been playing a bit of chess recently. And I unashamedly say he's a friend of mine, so there we go. The next is really quite a rare book, about the Max Lange. I don't suppose I'm pronouncing that Lange. What do you think, Max Lange? Don't know. This booklet encompasses more than the title implies. Doesn't often get that on the front cover, is it really? The more complete title would be The Max Lange Attack After 5 Castles, Bishop to Bishop 4, 6, Pawn to King 5, the anti-Max Lange Attack After 5 Castles. Therefore, you are presented with a dynamic system after the moves Pawn to King 4, Pawn to King 4, Knight to King Bishop 3, Knight to Queen Bishop 3, Bishop to Bishop 4, Knight to Bishop 3, Pawn to 4, Pawn to Queen 4, Pawn takes Pawn. And to help you visualize that position, they're given the start position and not the one they're actually talking about. Anyway, this was originally, look at that. This was originally sold by Chess. There's their little logo down there. And the book is dedicated to George Koltanowski, who was a blindfold player. He wasn't blind, but he used to do exhibitions by doing a knight's tour all over the board, and people used to bask in admiration. In fact, it's a skill, and obviously something he perfected over many years. He mentions the players that have been involved in the Max Lange, first analysed by Max Lange himself in 1854, hence the name Max Lange attack. Chigorin declared it a very good position, and previously underestimated the resources for maintaining an attack against the black position. Should you play the Max Lange against strong players? The question will be answered by two recent games in which Soviet grandmasters, former world champion Vasily Smyslov and Ratmir Kolmov, as black, took it upon themselves to avoid the main line. Well, how about that then? If that doesn't put the tin hat on it, I don't know what does. It's a very old-fashioned in as much that it's sparsely laid out, but I don't think that's anything against it, do you? It just shows you some lines in descriptive notation. There's plenty of detail here, going right up to move 19. You could have won a game. Well, actually, it goes beyond move 19. Shows some games going right up to the end, mate 37. Quotes the Rubinstein line and some little-known games and some correspondence, postal games. Well, I don't think he keeps you short here. Depth of discussion seems quite 11th move alternatives. I mean, come on, that's pretty good. Part 2 is the anti-Max Lange. So after 3 bishop c4, knight f6, d4, e takes d4, he castles. And they're showing various responses at move 5, starting with knight takes e4, rook e1. And quotes a game between Pelikan and Rellstab. As an old man, Rellstab came to the German, West German, came to Hastings. He won the challenges. He also came to the British Championship and played in the Major Open, which was a treat for us. You don't get that so much nowadays, do you? A game of Chigurins again was good value for money. Won by Erva. Once again, quite deep sort of discussion, talking about 10th move alternatives, and then 10th move again, and 10th move again. Couldn't walk for more than that, could you? I'm really quite impressed here. I got this, I thought it was just a little pot boiler, but it's not. It's really quite has. Yeah, this has teeth. Another anti-Max Lange with 4d4, pawn takes pawn, So E takes d4 and then 5 castles. I thought I said that already. Perhaps this is something new. There we are. So it's in 5 sections. If you see it around, you might give it your time. Now the last one I want to show you is a Batsford. And the only reason that I got it was because it's signed by the author. He's put his signature there and then he's printed his name and then dated it, 1986. July 1986, the 14th of July. Eddie Gufeld was, there were many sort of stories against him, but being KGB and all of that and more. I know nothing about whether he's KGB. I never spoke to him, but I did see him around and he came to tournaments. I remember Stuart Rubin saying to me that I said, oh, it would be nice to have David Bronstein. And he said, he's a bit annoying. So I'd rather have Eddie Gufeld, who at the time was about the same strength. This is Exploiting Small Advantages. There's a book by Pomar, which I sold to Peter Clark, called Minimis Ventajas en el Final. And this is on a similar theme. It just says, it gives you positions where one player has a, I was going to say microscopic, but a small advantage, a perceptible advantage, but you have to press it home. And as we all know, that can be very difficult. I was looking at something today and it said something about just because you're a pawn up in an ending, maybe with queens on, don't think that that will give you a cast iron win, because if your opponent's got a fast running pawn and you don't, you're about to have to give it all your attention, either to stop it or to exchange it off or something, or blockade it, I suppose, which would stop it. Eddie gives one of his games, and then one by Larson, and then one by his colleague Suetin, in which he was black. Suetin was one of these guys that came to England like Eddie Gufeld, as much to go to hospital as to play chess. I don't mean that flippantly. He wasn't too well. Small positional advantages, this is called. Rubinstein Lasker, so these are games at the highest level. Exploiting small material advantages, which isn't quite the same thing, is it? I think the best way to exploit things is to do it right, and that's why he wrote this book, which is a Batsford model. I put all the details, I've done it already, down below, so you won't be flailing around wondering what I'm talking about. Psychological advantages, again by Maya Chaberdanitsa. We don't hear too much about her nowadays. She was a prodigy, wasn't she, that became world champion? And, like players from Georgia, they were very strong, but with the advent of the Polgars and the game opening up more, her career was perhaps not cut short, but wasn't. She didn't quite get the publicity, the spotlight, as once she did. And with that, probably the invitations would have dried up a little bit. She did play in England. She played at Lloyd's Bank and also at Hastings with Gufeld, who was her trainer, probably one of her trainers, because I know David Bronstein told me that I trained her 12 hours a day or something. She did not listen, which I'll bet she did. So, David, if you're listening, and you aren't because you did, I think that was a little bit unkind. Now, the game ended in a draw, chapter 5. Quite a few games again here. Endings, middle games and endings, or middle games peter out in the ending. Some by the author. Yes, in the merciless game of chess, you have to be vigilant to the very end. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the very end. I hope you'll give Exploiting Small Advantages by Eduard Gufeld your attention. It's not a book for kids, and it's not a book for beginners. But if you have heavyweight middle game books or end game books you haven't, and you don't want, let's be honest with ourselves, don't want to bother looking at, this could be a nice light book to take to your next tournament in your bag and have a look through. It's obviously chess on a high level and explained straightforwardly without absolute forests of information. This has been Chess Book Reviews 107.